All right, let's talk about William Shakespeare's sonnets. You've probably heard of them, maybe even read one or two in school. But today, we're going to get into the real story behind one of the most famous and, yeah, most misunderstood collections of poetry ever written. So when someone says Shakespeare's sonnets, your mind probably goes straight to epic love poems, right? Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? That whole thing. But what if I told you that's just scratching the surface of a much weirder, darker, and frankly, way more fascinating story? So here's our game plan. We're going to look at why these poems were written in the first place, who they were actually for, the scandalous little drama they tell, and how Shakespeare built them. And then we'll get into why, after all this time, they still hit so hard. Okay, first things first. To really get the sonnets, you have to understand the world they came from. For a professional writer like Shakespeare, poetry wasn't just some artsy hobby. It was a business. It was his side hustle. And that business ran on something called patronage. Basically, a rich nobleman would sponsor an artist. The artist got the money to, live and keep writing. And the patron? They got major bragging rights and prestige for having a genius like Shakespeare dedicating works to them. For a writer trying to make it, landing a good patron was absolutely crucial. And this is the key. These sonnets were never meant for you and me. For years, they were passed around in secret, handwritten just between a small group of friends. This version you're seeing here from 1609, it was probably a bootleg copy, published without Shakespeare even knowing. So you have to think of these poems as intensely private, almost like reading someone's diary. And that privacy meant Shakespeare could break all the rules. I mean, he didn't just bend the conventions of poetry at the time, he completely shattered them. Just look at this. The typical sonnet back then was all about some perfect, angelic, untouchable woman. But Shakespeare? He directs the first 126 sonnets to a beautiful young man, and he's not just praising him. He's talking about obsession, jealousy, the works. And then he brings in this other character, a sensuous and sexually promiscuous mistress, the Dark Lady. For the 1600s, this was radical stuff. So yeah, forget simple I love you poems. Shakespeare gives us the whole messy, complicated reality of human emotion. You get the highest highs, delight, pride, but you also get the absolute lowest lows, like deep sadness, shame, disgust, and even fear. This is love and desire in all its raw, honest, psychological glory. All of this brings us to the cast of characters at the center of this poetic drama, because these aren't just random poems, they actually tell a story, and a pretty juicy one at that, all revolving around three key people. First, you've got the fair youth. He's a good-looking nobleman who is the object of the poet's intense, complicated affection. Then there's the Dark Lady, this seductive but kind of dangerous figure. And to stir the pot, there's a rival poet who's also trying to win over the same patron. It's this whole love triangle full of passion, betrayal, and professional jealousy. And for centuries, people have been trying to figure out who they really were. We'll probably never know for sure, and honestly, that's part of the fun. Okay, so we've got the context and the scandalous story, but what about the poems themselves? How did Shakespeare pack so much drama into just 14 tiny lines? Well, let's crack the code. A Shakespearean sonnet has a very specific blueprint. It's always 14 lines long. It's built from 3 4-line sections, we call those quatrains, and it wraps everything up with a punchy 2-line ending called a couplet. It's like a little puzzle, and every piece has to fit just right. And this structure is pure genius for building an argument. In the first part, he introduces an idea or a problem. In the next two, he explores it, complicates it, maybe looks at it from a different angle. But the real magic, so often, is in that final 2-line couplet. It can either sum everything up neatly, or, and this is Shakespeare's signature move, it can deliver a shocking twist that changes how you see the entire poem. Just take a look at this famous ending from Sonnet 138. The first 12 lines are all about a relationship built on little white lies they tell each other. And then, bam! This couplet hits you with the cold, hard truth of their arrangement. In just 2 lines, he reveals this whole universe of complicated, cynical love. That's the power of this form. So, you've got this scandalous backstory, a mysterious cast of characters, and this incredibly clever poetic structure. You add all that up, and you start to see why these poems, written over 400 years ago, still feel so alive and so now.
Experts talk about their perennial freshness, which is just a fancy way of saying they never get old. And that's because each 14-line poem is just so dense, so packed with a kind of haunting energy. The stakes feel incredibly high, both psychologically and morally, and they really force you to pay attention.
So, after 4 centuries, what really makes these poems so rewarding to come back to again and again? It's that they don't give you easy answers. They don't offer simple happy ever after love stories. Instead, they invite us into a complicated, messy, and profoundly human world, one that feels just as real and immediate today as it must have all those years ago.